When you close your eyes and you imagine something in your mind, what do you see? Do you see things visually? Can you visualize clearly a, an object, the surroundings, the environment in which it sits? Can you see a room? When you close your eyes and you imagine, what do you see? Is it a clear picture? Is it the same as what you would see with your eyes open? Or is it something more abstract? Or do you not see anything? Can you hear things inside your head if you imagine them? Can you imagine a song and hear the lyrics and hear the words? Can you hear the sounds? Does it sound the same as if you were listening to that music or to those words or whatever that sound is? Or is it more abstract in your mind? For me, the visuals and the sounds have always been very abstract within my mind. I never get a clear picture of what I'm seeing, and I never hear clearly either. In fact, other than maybe music or people talking, I don't know, I don't really imagine much from a sound perspective. I do, however, hear tones in my ears when I'm thinking of certain topics, or when my mind wanders into different areas that are beyond day-to-day 3D life. When my mind wanders into other realms, my ears seem to give me feedback or clues, which I literally hear as a ringing sort of sound in my ears. Some people get this, some people don't. Some people experience it. Some people hear very clear ringing under certain conditions. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. The thing I wanted to ask was what do you hear? What do you see in your mind if you don't have the external world to look at or to hear? What can you imagine? So for me, it's mostly abstract. When I was about 13 years old, every night I would try to visualize a particular person's face, and after weeks or months of practice, I slowly became better at kind of getting a somewhat clearer picture in my mind of what that person looked like. And it was just a fun sort of activity at the time. But I think it sort of helped my mind to sort of go from extremely abstract visuals to starting to have a little bit of a clearer picture, but I still can't see it. And my dreams are the same. So when I have dreams, my dreams are things that you could describe as you saw this or you saw that, or I saw this happening. But really, did I see it? No, I didn't actually see anything in my dreams. I wasn't looking at a clear picture like a photograph or a movie or some other sort of story. And I wasn't hearing it clearly either. In most of my dreams, 90% plus, I don't hear anything. The best that I will get generally is I will get something that is my brain understands what it is clearly, what I'm looking at and perhaps what I'm hearing. If the words are clear, then I will understand what the words are, but I don't actually hear them. And what I see, I can kind of like I can kind of see those things, but I'm not actually seeing it, and I don't know how to describe it. My dreams are like, often they're like a quantum state of many superpositions of everything and anything, whereby I exist within a world within my mind where I'm not seeing much at all other than what I am looking at. And what I mean by that is I will not see any surroundings necessarily unless the surroundings are part of the story of what my dream is trying to convey, in which case I might see some surroundings. But generally I won't necessarily, every dream is different, but in some of the dreams that I'm thinking of currently, I was in perhaps, let's say, a white void where there was nothing, but there was everything. And it wasn't black necessarily, but it was like, let's just call it light, like whitish, not necessarily even a color, because again, I can't visualize it. But I understood it to be like a warm white within my mind, within my dreams. And I found myself at a particular position, a particular location. And yet in a void of nothingness and everythingness, how can there be a position? How can you know where you are, or when you are, or any other dimension? And yet there was nothing there, and yet somehow I was here in this particular spot. When I reached this particular spot, it was like that particular quantum set of superpositions were able to be visualized, realized with real eyes. I was able to basically remember what this location was, and in the process of remembering it, I started to see it. The location started to materialize, and I found myself at an old train station, and it felt like maybe in the 1900s, maybe 1950 at the very latest. So let's say between 1900 and 1950, or perhaps in the 1800s. But it was like an old train station, and it was like the building was made of bricks, and there was maybe a railway line going beside it. Not too much else, because again, I wasn't looking too much at the surroundings. I was just focusing on where I was, and there wasn't any surroundings anyway, because the rest of it was just white sort of light. But as I was remembering it, the emotions of that place and that time and those experiences also flowed back, and like I just remembered, and it like almost like made me want to cry, just like remembering what this place was and the feeling of it. And not even I didn't remember the experiences, but I just remembered this particular sort of physical location, even though I wasn't really in physicality as such. And so my dream was kind of like this, I call it this like quantum state of everything and nothing, where basically it is as if there are all the possibilities that exist within the universe, and within every universe, and within everything that ever was and will be and could be, and that you could possibly imagine, not even imagine. All of that, everything is like the quantum states of everything that could be. And it was almost like with the process of remembering that particular location and where I was in my memory within the dream, that all of those quantum states sort of unlocked, and it was this Schrodinger's cat quantum state originally, where the cat was neither alive nor dead. In this particular example, I was in this place where there was neither a building, nor was there no building, nor was there a cat, nor was there a person, nor was there an earth or no earth. It was like everything that could be or could not be was there and not there. But in remembering that particular memory and having that come back to me, those quantum states were able to be, in the Schrodinger's cat famous science example, once you observe it, it's sort of it locks it into place, and it's neither a here or there. Once you observe it, it's like it becomes something visual. It becomes more real. Once you sort of observe it, you sort of like you materialize it. You it changes from abstract into something more, a little bit more concrete. And this materialization process is this process of what's the word? Manifestation. You essentially are, in my dream, I was sort of like I was manifesting this quantum state into reliving this picture of what and this place of what this was. And in doing so, I sort of found myself being not just viewing a picture of what that place was. I became in that world, like this, as if I went through a portal, but I didn't go through a portal because I was already there. I was in the location. I had to remember it, and in remembering it, the location I remembered what it looked like, and the location equally showed itself as per that memory instantaneously, like a feedback, sort of like it was neither me remembering nor was it the thing showing me. It was like both. They were like intertwined. It's like all the same. The train station just sort of like over the course of a few seconds it appeared, and suddenly there were people there, and there was noise, and there was like some sort of chatter and things going on, and it must have been like everyday life. And I can't remember clearly what happened within there, because that was that memory within the dream, and I did not bother to record all of that within my mind. It was more so the process of just materializing into there. But I didn't find myself fully in that world. I just materialized enough to be, 10 meters in front of me, and a few meters behind me, and a few meters to the side. I just saw that part all around me, and the rest of the world was just empty, void, empty, and yet everything that could possibly be. And instead of attaching myself to that world and getting lost within it, then my dream, I found myself going to some other place, and there was a lady who was, as if in a fairy tale, she was like the princess at the top of the castle who was waiting to be rescued. That kind of visual, except she wasn't a princess, and but she was a lady who had been through some sort of trauma, and was currently experiencing negative problems within her reality right there and right then. But I was able to sort of like fly up to her, and she was still like in her captive little room at the top of the tower, at the top of this castle, looking out. And she was just a small room looking out high above everything, but I was able to zoom in there and fly in there and sort of like somehow give her some keys, some lessons, some knowledge that perhaps she needed in some way, and I was able to sort of help her in some way. And I can't remember clearly any more details about that dream. However, I did actually make a video about that a few years ago now, and I wrote it all down or I typed it, and I might have printed it, and then I recorded it, and it's a specific video on my channel, so I can refer back to it if I need to. And it would be interesting to compare my memory now of that dream versus my memory at that time of my dream as I woke up. But anyway, this is just a simple example of how I often will experience dreams, is that it's a more often a little bit more of a playful state, or maybe I'm being taken somewhere, or maybe I'm in some sort of like game, as if in like a story or a play or something, but it's very a playful dream. Or alternatively, it's like I'm being shown something, or I'm given some sort of story which I make up in my mind in the dream. I make up creative ideas that just are crazy and don't make sense, but they're for the purpose, those particular types of dreams, of the purpose of like giving me symbolism that I can understand. And if I can interpret that symbolism in everyday life when I wake up, then that can help me in my life and help me to grow or learn or whatever. That's a different type of dream, but generally all of my dreams are not vivid pictures, not vivid clear imagery that I can say, wow, look at that bright red building with those giant skyscrapers and this blah 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 with all this detail, because that detail doesn't exist. Generally, in almost all of my dreams, the dream is very abstract. In some dreams less abstract than others, but when it is less abstract, it is I just see just enough to see what I need to see and know what I need to know, and experience what I need to experience within that dream. The rest of the landscape is just null, not even void. It's just not defined, it's undefined. Or at best it might be black, or it might be white. A never-ending expanse of black or white or whatever, at best. But generally everything else is undefined, and I only see what I focus on. And so when I see people in my dreams, generally I will see them, but I will understand them as a concept, and I'll see them as not necessarily even seeing them. I'll just see just enough of them to know who they are, or just enough to see their face or whatever. But I won't necessarily see their arms, for example. I won't necessarily see their legs. Sometimes people will float. So one lady was, my teacher was floating from some place high above, let's just call it in the sky, and just came straight down quickly towards the earth, but didn't land on the earth, and just sort of like floated straight in. And I was sitting inside a bus, and then she floated in through the front door of the bus, which was open, and just floated in and landed in the driver's seat and started driving the bus. But there was no need for legs or arms, but I still knew who it was, and I was able to see just enough of that person to know it was that person. But everything else is just abstract. So I knew that I was on a bus, and I sort of had a vague outline of like the depth and the dimensions of the bus roughly compared to the size that I was, perhaps. But even that was a little bit abstract. But the bus itself was not fully clearly defined. And then the outside, I just had vague ideas of the depth to which I was perceiving the outside, and it itself was all quite abstract. And so a lot of my dreams are like this. They're either I remember just enough of this abstract stuff that I am able to recall my dreams and extract some sort of symbolism, or sometimes I'm even literally told a message, like a couple of years ago, where the moral of the story of the dream was you need to help the community. Literally, words that I um, translated into my own voice to help me remember as the dream was ending and as I was waking up. It was literally the very end of the dream. It had no words the whole way through, right into the very end when the moral of the story was given to me, and the older lady, was like a grandmother sort of figure, but not a grandmother, but like that warm kind of like warm-hearted kind of like figure, gave me this message of like if you want to, for me personally, like if I want to feel useful and um, feel good within myself, sometimes I need to help the community in some way. And who the community is, like what that represents, is up to me. But as long as I'm sort of helping the community, whoever that may be, whether this is on YouTube or in real life communities, if I'm helping the community in some way, then that will sort of be good for my heart or soul or whatever. I've gone a little bit off topic, but sometimes I am giving messages like directly, and if I can right at the end of the dream, if I can very quickly, as I'm sort of waking up, just in that couple of seconds, if I can kind of rapidly take all of the things from all of the key points from the dream, and I can just do a translation of those ideas and what happened and what I remember, and those abstract thoughts and abstract visuals or abstract audio or whatever, not even audio, but if I can take those things and I can translate them into a story that that um, that I can understand in my conscious brain, then I will be able to remember that dream. And I might forget it later on in the day, but at some point I will be able to remember that story that I remember that translation that I stored, and some of the abstract ideas will get attached in my memory, will get attached to that translation, and so I'm able to convey that dream by conveying the story that I made for myself, which is the translation, the um, summary of what happened. It wasn't actually exactly what happened, but it was my quick, creative story that I told myself to help me remember what happened. And I would combine that with my very vague, abstract memories of what happened within the dream in order to recall it and have that dream be recalled and be useful. Having said that, I don't often remember my dreams, but sometimes I go through phases where I remember more, and sometimes I go through phases where I have really helpful dreams. I guess it depends on my sleep and my schedule, which are often um, don't allow for my best sleeping time, which is like at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. is when I get like the best dreams, and um, often I sort of schedule myself or find myself in situations where I don't end up with those sort of dreams. But anyway, that's enough for today. What are I would be interested to know how other people dream, because I get the impression from listening to other people speak, from reading their stories that they've written, and from other mechanisms, that people dream in very different ways, perhaps. Or maybe people visualize things in very different ways. or maybe people hear things in very different ways. Within their mind, they may have a totally different way of perceiving or remembering or understanding than I do. So this has been my best attempt in my whole life at explaining. I think I feel like I've nailed it as best as I can, explaining how my mind sort of operates. And it would be interesting to know how other people experience dreams and life and everything else. I know that I have a friend who says she has a photorealistic memory. And so one story she would occasionally tell is that when she was at school or higher education and she was studying for something, she would often do well in exams. And the reason is that she'd be sitting there, well, beforehand she would study, and her studying would literally be reading the book, just like reading it, like looking at it, all the pages carefully. And then she'd be sitting there in the exam and she'd think, now what was that thing again? And she'd go to remember. And in remembering, what she would do was she would literally find the page in her head of the book, open that page, and she would see as a photo, as a visual picture, that page within her mind, and she could literally read the words off the page from her memory. It wasn't abstract. She could actually sort of like see the page, see the words, and she could read the words with her eyes closed and go, okay, all right, now I remember what was on that page. And then that would help her calculate the answer to the question. Then she would be able to answer the question well on the exam, and then she would do well in all her studies. I just thought that was like an amazing skill. But there may be other people that understand things in completely different ways again. So, yeah, interesting to hear what other people have to say.